The human had been traveling for a long time. His name was Ethan, and he had crossed half the galaxy as a trade observer for Earth. He had seen strange worlds, dangerous species, and laws that made no sense to humans. Still, nothing prepared him for the place called Zelker Prime, a massive alien space station known for luxury, power, and secrets. Zelker Prime had one attraction that made it famous across the galaxy. The Crimson Table. It was not just a restaurant. It was a symbol. Only the richest and most powerful beings could eat there. The food was said to be rare, dangerous, and unforgettable. Ethan sat calmly at the table, ignoring the many alien eyes watching him. Some stared in curiosity. Others stared with hunger. Humans were still new to this part of the galaxy, and many species did not understand them yet. A tall, insect-like waiter approached. "Welcome, honored guest," the waiter said in broken Galactic common. "What will you order?" Ethan scanned the menu. The words were translated for him, but some items still felt wrong. Living delicacies, cultural dishes, fresh selections. One item stood out. Rare steak, traditional preparation. Ethan raised an eyebrow. On Earth, rare steak was simple, red meat, lightly cooked. Nothing special. "I'll take the rare steak," Ethan said calmly. The table went silent. Nearby diners froze. A reptilian noble stopped chewing. A furred merchant slowly turned his head. Even the waiter's antennae stiffened. "Are you certain?" The waiter asked carefully. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Rare, traditional." The waiter hesitated, then bowed deeply. "As you wish." As the waiter walked away, whispers spread through the restaurant. Ethan noticed the tension but ignored it. He assumed it was because humans were still considered outsiders. Minutes passed. The lights in the restaurant dimmed. Soft red illumination filled the room. A low hum echoed from the walls like a ceremonial chant. Ethan frowned. "That's dramatic for a steak," he thought. Then the doors opened. Two guards walked in, tall and heavily armored. Between them was a platform, floating slowly toward Ethan's table. On the platform was not food. It was a young alien girl. She was small, thin, and trembling. Her skin was pale blue, marked with faint glowing lines. Chains of soft energy wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her large eyes were wide with fear. Shining with tears, she was alive. The platform stopped beside Ethan's table. The waiter returned and gestured proudly. "Your meal, fresh, untouched, prepared according to tradition." Ethan stared. For a moment, his mind refused to understand what he was seeing. He looked at the girl, then at the waiter, then back at the girl. She looked up at him, her lips shaking. She clearly understood what was happening. This was not food. This was a person. Ethan slowly stood up. "No," he said. The word was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. The waiter blinked. "Is there a problem, honored guest?" "Yes," Ethan said, his voice firm now. "This is not a steak." The waiter tilted his head. "She is classified as fresh livestock, non-sentient, perfectly legal." The girl flinched at those words. Ethan clenched his fists. On Earth, humans had once used similar words: property, livestock, less than human. History had taught them how wrong that thinking was. "She's scared," Ethan said. "She understands you. She understands me." The waiter's tone cooled. Fear response does not indicate intelligence. Ethan looked around the room. No one was reacting. Some aliens watched with amusement. Others looked bored. To them, this was normal. That frightened Ethan more than anything. He leaned closer to the girl and spoke softly. "Can you understand me?" Her eyes locked onto his. She nodded slightly. That was enough. Ethan straightened and raised his voice. "I cancel my order," he said loudly, "and I demand she be released." Gasps echoed across the crimson table. The waiter stiffened. That is not how this works. Ethan tapped the recorder on his wrist. It is now. Everything here is being recorded and transmitted to Earth. The guards shifted uneasily. This is legal under Galactic law, the waiter said sharply. Then Galactic law is broken, Ethan replied. And humans don't ignore broken laws, we fix them. The girl stared at him in disbelief. For the first time since she had been brought out, a small spark of hope appeared in her eyes. Alarms suddenly rang across the restaurant. Security forces rushed in. But they were not moving toward the girl. They were moving toward Ethan, and as they surrounded him, the human did not step back. Instead, he smiled grimly. Because the galaxy was about to learn something very important. Never serve a human cruelty and expect silence. Security surrounded Ethan within seconds. Heavy boots hit the polished floor. Weapons hummed softly as they powered on. The restaurant guests leaned back in their seats, watching like this was part of the entertainment. Ethan raised his hand slowly, not in fear, but to show control. I am not resisting, he said calmly. The alien girl was still on the floating platform. Her breathing was fast. Her eyes moved between the guards and Ethan. She had seen this before. Humans who spoke too much usually disappeared. The lead guard, a tall creature with metal plates grown into its skin, stepped forward. You are disrupting a legal cultural practice, the guard said. Step away from the product. Ethan's jaw tightened. She is not a product. The guard ignored him and turned to the waiter. Proceed with protocol. The waiter pressed a control on his wrist. The energy chains around the girl tightened. She cried out softly, a sharp sound that made Ethan's chest burn. Stop! Ethan shouted. The entire room froze again. Ethan looked directly at the girl. What is your name? He asked. The waiter laughed. Livestock do not. My name is Selah, the girl whispered. The sound of her voice shattered the calm. Several diners shifted uncomfortably. One even looked away. Ethan turned slowly, anger clear on his face. Say that again, he said, pointing at Selah. Say she's not sentient. The waiter hesitated for the first time. She speaks, the waiter said carefully. That does not mean. She understands fear. She understands death, Ethan snapped. And she understands mercy, even if you don't. The lead guard stepped closer. Human, your emotions are clouding your judgment. Ethan laughed once, cold and sharp. No, my history is clearing it. He tapped his wrist again. A small hologram appeared, showing Earth's symbol and a live transmission. Icon, I am a registered human envoy, Ethan said. Any harm done here is an act witnessed by my species. Murmurs spread through the room. Humans exaggerate, a nearby alien said. They are soft. Ethan turned toward the voice. We were once, he replied. Until we learned what silence costs. The guard commander paused. He clearly did not like attention from humans. Earth was not the strongest power, but it was growing fast, and it had a reputation. Explain, the commander said. Why do you care about one piece of livestock? Ethan stepped closer to Selah, placing himself between her and the guards. Because I recognize her eyes, he said. They look like ours did, centuries ago, the waiter scoffed. Your species consumed its own animals. Yes, Ethan said. Animals, not thinking people trapped by law. He pointed around the room. You call this culture. We call it cruelty dressed in tradition. Selah watched him, confused. No one had ever spoken like this for her, ever. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Ethan looked at her and softened his voice. Because someone once did it for us. And because no one did it for you. The guards hesitated again. That hesitation was everything. The commander turned to the waiter. Is she fully non-sentient? The waiter's mouth tightened. Her species shows limited intelligence. Ethan raised his recorder. Then you won't mind if Earth scientists test that claim. Silence. The commander knew what that meant. Humans documented everything. If this reached the wider galaxy, questions would follow. Trade consequences. Political pressure. The commander waved his hand. Pause the serving. The waiter's eyes widened. You can't. I can, the commander said coldly. Until clarification is made. The chains around Selah loosened slightly. She gasped in relief. Ethan exhaled slowly, but he knew this was not over. This station profits from this, Ethan said. How many like her have already been served? No one answered. That was answer enough. Ethan looked around the room, his voice steady but loud. Listen carefully, he said. Humans do not attack first. But when we see injustice, we do not forget, and we do not walk away. Some diners left their tables. Others stared in fear now. Selah looked at Ethan with wide eyes. Will they kill you? She asked. Ethan smiled slightly. Not today. He activated his communicator again. Earth, he said quietly. I found something you need to see. As the signal locked in, the commander realized the truth. This was no longer a dinner incident. This was the beginning of a galactic problem, and it all started because a human ordered a rare steak and refused to eat what the galaxy called normal. Part 3. When the human refused to look away, HFY, see Fifth Crimson Table did not feel powerful anymore. It felt fragile. Ethan could sense it in the air, the way guards shifted their stance, the way wealthy diners avoided his eyes. The pause ordered by the commander had broken, the illusion that this place was untouchable. But traditions like this did not die quietly. The waiter leaned close to the commander and spoke in a low, sharp voice. Human influence should not decide our customs. If word spreads, other guests will panic. The commander glanced at Ethan, then at Selah. Ethan noticed the look. It was not anger. It was calculation. That worried him. Human, the commander said, raising his voice. You have disrupted a legal process. A murmur rippled across the room. That is not a negotiation, the commander replied. Ethan nodded. Then neither is what happens next. He tapped his wrist again. Symbols appeared, human language, timestamps, station coordinates. I am filing a formal claim under emerging sentient protection review, Ethan said. No, Ethan agreed calmly. But we remind it of things it likes to forget. Selah watched him closely. Her. No one had ever spoken like this, so calm, so certain. Why do they listen to you? She whispered. Ethan did not look away from the commander. Because they are afraid of what happens when they don't. The commander raised one clawed hand. Enough, guards, separate the human from the specimen. The guards stepped forward. Ethan did not resist. He allowed two of them to grip his arms. The moment they touched him, several diners relaxed. That was the mistake. Ethan spoke loudly, his voice steady. The recorder blinked brighter. The commander froze. You are twisting facts. Ethan smiled slightly. I am stating them clearly. One of the guards hesitated. Commander, the human transmission is already active. The commander's eyes widened. Already? Yes, the guard replied. Auto-share protocol. Human design. A low sound of alarm escaped the waiter's throat. Across the restaurant, screens flickered. A symbol appeared, Earth Diplomatic Network. Live feed. The room erupted into chaos. Turn that off. Why is Earth watching? This is unacceptable. Ethan raised his voice over the noise. Hello, he said calmly. If you're seeing this, then you're watching a live example of cultural cruelty hidden behind legal language. Selah gasped softly. She stared at the screens, then at Ethan. You planned this? I hoped I wouldn't need it. The commander stepped forward, anger breaking through his control. Human, you will shut that down immediately. Silence fell again. The commander realized the trap. Every second the feed stayed live. More eyes were watching. Not just humans, other species who traded with Earth, learned from Earth. She is inventory. Ethan turned slowly. His eyes were cold now. Say that again. The waiter straightened. She is inventory. Sayla flinched. Ethan nodded once. Then inventory can be reclaimed. He spoke clearly into the recorder. Earth recognizes Sayla of the blue-marked people as a protected individual under humanitarian extraction. The commander barked a sharp laugh. You don't have the authority. A new sound cut him off. A deep vibration. The station shook slightly. All eyes turned upward as a voice echoed through the restaurant speakers. This is Earth Escort. Vessel Horizon Shield, the voice said. We are in docking range. We are observing the situation. That's impossible. Ethan allowed himself a small breath of relief. Commander stared at him in disbelief. You summoned them. Ethan shook his head. No, I told them the truth. Sayla's restraints powered down completely. She nearly collapsed. Ethan moved without thinking. He stepped forward, catching her before she fell. For the first time, he touched her arm, not as a buyer, not as an owner, but as a protector. She looked up at him, shaking. Does this mean I live? Ethan nodded. Yes, the commander clenched his fists. He knew the moment had passed. This was no longer a quiet meal hidden in tradition. This was public. This was human. Escort her out, the commander said sharply. Before this becomes war. Ethan met his eyes. Too late, he said softly. As guards led them toward the exit, Sayla held onto Ethan's sleeve, behind them. And humans were very good at digging up buried truths. The corridor outside the Crimson table was silent. Too silent. Ethan walked in the center. Guards on both sides. Sayla closed behind him. She kept her head low, as if expecting pain at any second. Every step she took felt unreal. She had walked these halls before, but never as someone leaving alive. The station trembled again. This time, no one pretended not to feel it. A calm but powerful voice echoed through the corridor speakers. Zelker Prime Command, this is Earth Escort Vessel Horizon Shield. We are holding position. Any harm to the protected individual will be recorded as a hostile act. Sayla froze. Hostile act? She whispered. What does that mean? It means they can't touch you. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Because of you? Ethan shook his head. Because you matter. A group of station officials waited tall, armored, decorated with symbols of authority. At their center stood the station overseer, an old being with metallic eyes and a long memory. He studied Ethan carefully. You are causing instability, the overseer said. One individual is not worth this level of risk. That sentence, he said, has been spoken before, on many worlds. Always before something terrible. The overseer's voice hardened. You compare our traditions to atrocities. Yes, Ethan replied, because tradition doesn't make cruelty harmless. A murmur ran through the officials. The overseer raised one hand. Explain this to me, human. Your species consumes animals. You fight wars. You destroy your own planet. Ethan nodded. We did, and we paid for it. That's why we recognize the signs. Fear, chains, laws that say some lives don't count. Sayla listened closely. No one had ever spoken like this where she came from. Her people were taught one thing: survive quietly, or don't survive. At all. The overseer looked at her. Do you understand this situation? Sayla hesitated. Every lesson in her life screamed at her to stay silent. But Ethan had not stayed silent. Yes, she said softly. I was going to be eaten. The corridor felt colder. The overseer turned back to Ethan. Her species was classified generations ago. Then your records are wrong, Ethan said. And humans update records when they cost lives. The overseer exhaled slowly. But Earth has influence, trade routes, medical tech, defense alliances, he paused, and we share information. Overseer Earth Media is already spreading this feed. Other councils are requesting explanation. The Overseer's eyes dimmed slightly. He had ruled this station for decades. He knew how fast power could change when eyes turned hostile. You planned this exposure, the Overseer accused. No, Ethan replied. You planned secrecy. Sayla felt something new rising in her chest. Not fear, strength. Why me? She asked suddenly. Everyone turned to her. Why was I chosen? She continued, her voice shaking but growing stronger. Why do you decide who is food and who is not? No one answered. The Overseer looked away first. That was enough. Ethan placed himself beside Sayla. This is why humans are dangerous, he said calmly. We ask questions that don't stay quiet. Another vibration shook the station stronger. This time, a new voice joined the channel, firm and clear. This is the Galactic Observation Council. This is unprecedented. Yes, the voice replied. So was the footage. Sayla's restraints dissolved completely. The last of the energy chains faded like mist. She gasped, staring at her free hands. I'm free, she whispered. For now, the Overseer said coldly. Until the council decides, Ethan met his gaze. That's all freedom ever is, a chance. Human medical personnel entered from a docking corridor, efficient, unarmed. One knelt in front of Sayla, offering a thermal blanket. We won't touch you unless you say yes. Ethan smiled. Faintly, paperwork. Humans are very good at paperwork after we cause trouble. For the first time, Sayla laughed a small broken sound. But real. Behind them, the Overseer watched in silence. He understood now. This was not a rescue. It was a warning. The galaxy had lived comfortably, with ugly laws for a long time, but humans had arrived with something far more dangerous than weapons. They had arrived with memory. And once humans remembered something was wrong, they never stopped pushing until the universe was forced to answer. Sayla had never seen a place like this. Human Medical Bay was bright, quiet, and warm. No chains, no guards with hungry eyes. Just soft lights and calm voices. She sat on the edge of a bed, wrapped in a blanket that felt heavier than it looked. Safe. The word still felt strange in her mind. Across the room, Ethan stood behind a clear barrier, watching silently as human doctors worked. They moved carefully, slowly, always explaining what they were doing, even though Sayla understood only parts of their language. We will scan only, one doctor said gently. No pain. You can stop us any time, Sayla nodded. She was afraid. But this fear was different. It was not the fear of death. It was the fear of hope. Ethan noticed her hands shaking. She doesn't have to do this, he said quietly. The lead doctor looked at him. She asked to. That surprised Ethan. Sayla looked up. If this helps others like me, she said slowly, choosing each word, then yes. Ethan felt a tight pressure in his chest. On the other side of the station, chaos was spreading. Live footage from the Crimson Table had reached far beyond Earth, merchant worlds, neutral systems. Even species that had never questioned old laws were watching now. In a dark council chamber, alien leaders argued fiercely. This is an internal matter. The humans are interfering. They are exposing us. One figure stood silently at the center, a representative from a neutral race known for one thing: data. Silence, the representative said at last. The issue is not human interference. The issue is classification. Screens lit up around the room. Medical data began to appear. Sayla's data. Back in the human medical bay. The scans finished. The doctor stared at the results, her face unreadable. Doctor? Ethan asked. The doctor turned the screen so he could see. Neural complexity. Language centers. Memory storage. Emotional processing. All far above the minimum threshold for sentience. There is no doubt, the doctor said. She is fully sentient, intelligent, self-aware. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. They were lying, he said. No, the doctor replied softly. They were comfortable. Sayla watched their expressions nervously. What does it say? She asked. Ethan knelt in front of her, so they were at eye level. It says you were never food, he said. You were treated like it anyway. Her lips trembled. We tried to tell them, long ago. They said our words were instinct sounds. Ethan felt anger burn again, but this time it was colder. Sharper. Earth will publish this, he said. Every channel. Every council. The doctor nodded. Already sending. Across the galaxy, the data spread like fire. Trade hubs froze shipments. Universities demanded reclassification reviews. Even species that had never eaten fresh livestock began checking their own laws. The truth was dangerous. In the station council chamber, the overseer watched the data scroll in silence. The neutral representative turned toward him. Zelker Prime knowingly misclassified a sentient species. That classification predates my rule, the overseer said. That does not absolve you. The representative replied. Another voice cut in. What about the others? The room fell silent. How many, the voice continued, have already been served? No one answered. Because no one wanted to count. Back in the medical bay, Sayla sat quietly while a human linguist spoke with her. How long has your people lived under this law? The linguist asked. Sayla thought. My grandmother said, always. Ethan clenched his jaw. The linguist looked up. Do your people have leaders? History? Culture? Sayla nodded. Songs, stories. We teach children quietly, so guards do not hear. The linguist swallowed. That will be enough. Ethan stood and turned away, fists tight. Humans had made mistakes before. Big ones. They knew the pattern too well. First, you say they are not like you. Then, you say they are less. Then you stop listening. His communicator buzzed. Ethan. A voice said, This is Earth Council. He answered immediately. The data confirms sentience, the voice continued. Public response is intense. Good, Ethan replied. It should be. There was a pause. We are granting Sayla and her people provisional protected status under Human Humanitarian Charter. Ethan exhaled slowly. Thank you. Sayla looked up at him. What does that mean? It means, Ethan said, choosing his words carefully. No one can touch you without answering to us. Her eyes widened. All of us? Yes, he said, all of you. For the first time, Sayla cried openly, not in fear, but in release. Elsewhere, the overseer received the final notice. All fresh serving operations suspended pending Galactic REVIE. He stared at the words, understanding the truth at last. This was not just about one girl. This was about a system that had fed on silence. And humans dangerous loud. Impossible humans had done the one thing that systems like this could never survive. They had forced the galaxy to look closely, and once the truth was seen, there would be no returning to the menu. The galaxy did not change quietly. It argued. Screens across 100 systems filled with heated debates, emergency councils, and angry speeches. Some worlds called the humans emotional. Others called them reckless. A few called them dangerous. Humans did not deny it. On Earth's council floor, a human representative spoke calmly while chaos echoed behind her on the galactic feed. We are not asking you to adopt our culture, she said. We are asking you to stop eating people. The sentence spread faster than any threat. Trade routes slowed, agreements paused. Worlds that had depended on human medical aid or engineering began to worry. Humans were not the strongest species, but they were everywhere, and they shared everything. On Zelker Prime, the crimson table stood empty. The lights were off. The grand doors were sealed. What had once been a symbol of power now felt like a crime scene. Sayla watched it from the viewport of the human escort ship. She hugged her blanket tightly, eyes fixed on the station growing smaller behind them. They will be angry, she said softly. Ethan stood beside her. They already are. She looked up at him. What if they change the law back? Ethan shook his head. They can't, not once it's been questioned. Sayla did not fully understand, but she trusted him. In the High Council chamber far away, the Galactic Legal Assembly convened an emergency session. Species that had not shared a room in centuries now argued side by side. This is human pressure. This is moral interference. This is overdue. At the center of the chamber floated the neutral arbiter, its voice flat and clear. Evidence has confirmed the sentience of multiple species, previously classified as livestock. It announced, current law is insufficient. A ripple of shock spread through the chamber. Multiple? Sayla's people are not the only ones. That truth hit harder than any human fleet. The law had not protected them, had hidden them. Aboard the human ship, Sayla sat as human officers spoke quietly nearby. They did not stare at her. They did not guard her like property. They treated her like a guest. Why are humans doing this? She finally asked. Ethan answered without hesitation. Because we failed once. She tilted her head. Failed who? Each other, he said. We learned what happens when laws move faster than empathy. Sayla considered that. In the council chamber, the arbiter continued. A proposal is on the floor, it said. All classifications of non-sentience must now be proven, not assumed. Any doubt defaults to protection. Outrage erupted. That will collapse industries. That will ruin traditions. Good. A smaller voice said from the edge of the chamber. It belonged to a young delegate from a minor world. We built those industries on pain, the delegate continued. Maybe they deserve to collapse. Silence followed. Votes were cast. Not all in favor, but enough. The arbiter spoke again. By majority decision, galactic law is amended. No being may be harvested, consumed, or traded without independent verification of non-sentience. Violations will result in sanctions. The words echoed like thunder. Across the galaxy, markets panicked. Some worlds celebrated. Others cursed the humans by name on the human ship. A soft chime sounded. Ethan checked his console, then smiled. It passed, he said. Sayla stared at him. Just like that? No, Ethan replied gently. Like this. He gestured too. The galaxy outside the viewport. With resistance, with noise. With people refusing to look away. Sayla pressed her hand against the glass. Somewhere out there were others like her still afraid. Still silent. They will know now, she whispered. Yes, Ethan said. And they will speak. A message arrived from Earth. Provisional protection status expanded. Human observers. DPLOYE. Ethan read it twice. They're sending humans to watch the places no one once watched, he said. Hesse. Ela felt something strange again. Not fear. Relief. Back on Zelker Prime, the overseer sat alone in his chamber, staring at the new law projected before him. Tradition had protected him for decades. Now, it could not protect him at all. He understood the human threat at last. Humans did not conquer with weapons first. They conquered with standards. And once a standard was raised, the old world beneath it began to crack. As the human ship jumped to faster than light, Sayla closed her eyes for the first time in her life. She was not being moved to be eaten. She was being moved toward a future. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, ancient systems trembled because the law had learned something new that day. It had learned to be afraid of humans who refused to accept normal. History remembered the Crimson Table for the wrong reason. For centuries, it had been known as a place of power where the rich proved their dominance by consuming what others feared. After the law changed, it became something else, a warning. Restaurant never reopened. Its sealed doors became a quiet monument on Zelker Prime, spoken of in low voices. New travelers stopped to look at it, not with hunger, but with discomfort. Silas stood on a balcony on Earth, watching the blue ocean stretch to the horizon. The air smelled clean, free. She still found it strange that no one watched her every move. "You don't have to stay inside," Ethan said, stepping beside her. "No one's tracking you." She smiled faintly. "I know. My body just hasn't learned yet." Below them, humans moved through the streets, busy, loud, imperfect. None of them stared at her like food. On distant worlds, the effects spread. Old menus were erased. Hidden farms were discovered. Species long dismissed as simple were tested, interviewed, listened to. Some failed the sentience review. Many did not. Every positive result carried the same quiet shame. "We should have known." In the Galactic Assembly Hall, the neutral arbiter delivered its final report. Since the incident at Zelker Prime, it announced 27 species have been reclassified as protected. Trade structures have collapsed. New alliances have formed. A delegate hissed angrily, "All because of one human and one meal." The arbiter replied evenly, "No, because the meal was wrong." Back on Earth, Sayla spoke before human and alien observers. Her voice was still soft, but it no longer shook. "We were taught to be silent," she said. "Silence kept us alive, but it also kept us invisible." She looked directly into the camera. "One human looked at me and did not see food. That changed everything." Ethan watched from the back of the room, saying nothing. This was never meant to be about him. After the hearing, Sayla found him standing outside, staring at the sky. "They call you dangerous," she said. He smiled. "They're not wrong, are you?" she asked. Ethan thought for a moment. "Only to systems that depend on suffering." She considered that, then nodded. News feeds across the galaxy began to use a new phrase, human standard. It meant a simple thing. If there's doubt, you stop. If there is fear, you listen. Worlds complained that it was inefficient. Humans agreed. Morality usually is. One human diplomat replied. Years later, a young alien traveler visited Earth and asked about the sealed crimson table. An old human guide answered, "That's where the galaxy learned a rule it should have known already." "What rule?" the traveler asked. The guide smiled. "Never confuse tradition with truth," he said. "And never serve a human a meal made of silence." Sayla stood once more by the ocean, older now, stronger. Her people were rebuilding, slowly, carefully, openly. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets. "All this," she said, gesturing to the world beyond, "because you ordered food." Ethan laughed softly. "No," he replied, "because I refused to eat what the galaxy told me was normal." The waves rolled in, steady and endless. Somewhere far away, laws continued to change. Systems continued to resist. But one thing was certain now. When humans sat at a table, the galaxy watched closely, because humans did not just ask what was being served. They asked who. And that question changed the universe forever.